At the helicopter testing facility of a major aviation corporation, a young CEO stood beside a brand new prototype aircraft. Her designer heels clicked against the concrete as she inspected the machine worth $20 million. Beside her, a man in a janitor's uniform wiped down the cockpit windows with steady hands. She turned to him with a half smile, her voice dripping with mockery. "Fly this helicopter and I'll marry you." Laughter erupted from the employees gathered around. Phones came out to record the moment. The janitor just smiled quietly, his eyes unchanging. 10 minutes later, the engine roared to life. The helicopter lifted off, circling like a hunting eagle. When it landed, the entire facility fell silent. Jack Turner was 40 years old, a single father, and a man who once commanded the skies. He used to be a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, an instructor in the Tactical Flight Division. He trained some of the best pilots in the country. But that was before the accident, before the injury that ended his military career, before he traded his flight suit for a janitor's uniform. Now he worked at Aerosky Corporation, mopping floors and cleaning windows. Nobody knew his past. Nobody asked. To them, he was just the quiet maintenance man who showed up early and left late. His daughter Ella was 9 years old. She had her mother's smile, though her mother had been gone for 3 years now. Cancer took her quickly. Too quickly. Ella was Jack's entire world. Every morning she would hug him before school and say the same thing. "Daddy, you don't need medals to be a pilot. You'll always be my hero." Jack kept his old pilot ID card in his wallet. The edges were worn, the lamination peeling. He looked at it sometimes, remembering a different version of himself, a version that felt confident, a version that mattered. At Aerosky, preparations were underway for something big. The company was about to unveil the Valkyrie V9, a cutting-edge helicopter with an advanced autopilot system. It was supposed to revolutionize the industry. But there was a problem. Nobody wanted to test fly it. The engineers were brilliant with computers and calculations. But flying, actually sitting in that cockpit and trusting their own work, that was different. Fear had a way of making even the smartest people hesitate. Aurora Vallon was 30 years old and already running the entire corporation. She inherited Aerosky from her father 2 years ago. Beautiful, intelligent, ruthless. She had an MBA from an Ivy League school and zero patience for weakness. To her, employees were resources, numbers on a spreadsheet, tools to be used. She especially looked down on the cleaning staff. They were invisible to her, background noise in her empire. The Valkyrie V9 sat in the testing hangar like a sleeping predator. Sleek black metal, curved glass, technology that most people couldn't even comprehend. Aurora stood beside it in her tailored business suit, arms crossed, staring at her team of engineers. They shuffled nervously, avoided eye contact. Jack was nearby, emptying trash cans. He moved quietly, efficiently. Years of military discipline made him notice everything. He saw the fear in their eyes. He understood it. Flying something new always carried risk, but he also saw something else. The helicopter was beautiful, perfectly balanced. The rotor system looked flawless. Whoever designed this knew what they were doing. Aurora's voice cut through the silence, sharp and cold. "We launch in 1 week. Someone needs to test this aircraft, not the simulator. The real thing." Nobody volunteered. She looked around the room with disgust. "I'm surrounded by cowards." Jack kept working, but he smiled slightly. He had heard officers talk like that before. Fear and anger dressed up as leadership. It never worked. Ella's words echoed in his mind. You don't need medals to be a pilot. Maybe not, but he knew what he was. And watching that beautiful machine sit unused felt wrong, like seeing a caged eagle. He finished his work and headed toward the exit. Tomorrow was another day, another shift of being invisible. He had no idea that everything was about to change. The next morning, tension filled the hangar. Aurora had called an emergency meeting. Her heels echoed against the concrete floor as she paced in front of the Valkyrie V9. 20 engineers stood in a semicircle, looking miserable. "Let me understand this correctly," Aurora said, her voice dangerously quiet. "We have spent 3 years and $40 million developing this aircraft. We have media coverage scheduled. We have potential buyers flying in from 6 countries. And not one of you has the courage to test it? An older engineer named Marcus spoke up nervously. Miss Valen, with respect, the autopilot system is completely new. If something goes wrong at altitude, the manual override might not respond fast enough. We need a professional test pilot, someone with military experience who... We don't have time to hire an outside pilot, Aurora snapped. You're all engineers, not pilots. I understand that. But somebody in this company must have basic flight training. Silence. Jack was working near the rear of the hangar, cleaning the windows of the observation room. He had his back turned, but he heard every word. He had seen this situation before. Pride versus reality. It rarely ended well. Without thinking, he spoke. His voice was calm, almost casual. Maybe you need someone who's both. Everyone turned. Aurora's eyes landed on him like a spotlight. Her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to something close to amusement. Excuse me? Jack set down his cleaning supplies and walked closer. He kept his movements slow, non-threatening. Old habit from diffusing tense situations in the military. You said you need someone who's an engineer and a pilot. Maybe you're looking in the wrong places. One of the younger engineers laughed out loud. Others joined in. The sound rippled through the group like a wave. Oh my God, someone whispered. The janitor thinks he can fly. Aurora tilted her head, studying Jack like he was a strange insect. A smile played at the corner of her mouth. Not a kind smile, the smile of someone about to enjoy themselves. You, she said, you think you can fly a $20 million aircraft? I didn't say that, Jack replied evenly. You said you needed someone. I'm just pointing out you might be making assumptions. The room erupted in laughter now. Someone pulled out their phone, started recording. This was going to be the break room joke for months. Aurora stepped closer to Jack. She was tall in her heels, almost at eye level with him. Her perfume was expensive. Her confidence was absolute. Tell you what, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Fly this helicopter successfully and I'll marry you. More laughter. Someone clapped. Marcus shook his head, embarrassed for everyone involved. Jack looked at Aurora for a long moment. His face showed nothing. No anger, no embarrassment. Just that same calm expression he always wore. Then he smiled. A real smile, the kind that touched his eyes. Deal. The laughter stopped. Aurora's smile faltered, just for a second. She hadn't expected him to agree. Wait, Marcus said, stepping forward. Miss Valen, we can't actually let him... Why not? Aurora interrupted. She was committed now, playing to the crowd. He accepted the terms. Let's see if our janitor has hidden talents. She gestured toward the helicopter. Well, show us what you got. Jack walked to the Valkyrie V9. The crowd followed, still laughing but also curious now. This was better than any reality TV show. Someone muttered about calling security. Another person said they should stop this before someone got hurt, but Aurora held up her hand. No, I want to see this. Jack circled the helicopter once, running his hand along the fuselage. He checked the rotor system, the tail boom, the landing skids. His movements were methodical, professional. People started to notice. He opened the cockpit door and climbed in. The laughter had mostly died down now, replaced by an uncomfortable silence. A few people looked worried. Aurora stood with her arms crossed, phone cameras pointed at the helicopter from multiple angles. This was going to be social media gold. The arrogant janitor who thought he could fly. Jack put on the headset. His hands moved across the controls with surprising confidence. Switches flipped. Systems hummed to life. The instrument panel lit up like a Christmas tree. Marcus's eyes went wide. He's actually starting the engine, someone whispered. The rotor began to spin, slowly at first, then faster. The whine of the turbine built to a roar. Wind blasted across the hangar floor, sending papers flying. Aurora's hair whipped around her face. She didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at the helicopter. The Valkyrie V9 lifted off the ground. 6 inches, 1 foot, 3 feet. Then it rose smoothly into the air, rotating gently as it climbed. Jack's hands were steady on the controls. The helicopter responded like it was an extension of his body. He took it higher. 50 feet, 100 feet. Then he banked left in a maneuver that made several engineers gasp. The Valkyrie rolled through a tactical turn that only military pilots practiced. Then another. Then a controlled dive that brought it low over the hangar before pulling up sharply. It was beautiful. Aggressive. Perfect. When Jack brought the helicopter down for a landing, it touched the concrete so gently that the landing skids barely made a sound. The engine powered down. The rotors slowed. Silence fell over the entire facility like a blanket. Jack removed his headset and climbed out of the cockpit. He walked toward Aurora, who stood frozen, her mouth slightly open. Nobody was laughing now. Aurora walked toward Jack, her heels clicking in the silence. Her face had gone pale. Behind her, engineers stood with their mouths open, trying to process what they had just witnessed. "Who are you?" she whispered. Jack reached into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet. It was worn leather, cracked at the edges. He opened it carefully and removed a laminated card. The plastic was yellowed with age, the corners soft from years of handling. He placed it on the table between them. Aurora picked it up with shaking hands. Her eyes scanned the text, then stopped, then read it again. Lieutenant Colonel Jack Turner, Instructor, Tactical Flight Division, United States Air Force. The words hung in the air like smoke. Marcus pushed through the crowd and grabbed the card from Aurora's hand. His face went white. "Oh my God," he breathed. "You're that Turner?" Jack said nothing, just stood there with his hands in his pockets, watching them realize. A younger engineer looked confused. "I don't understand. Who is he?" Marcus turned to face the group, holding up the ID card like evidence in a trial. Jack Turner trained half the military helicopter pilots in this country. He was one of the best tactical flight instructors in the Air Force. He flew combat missions in 3 different war zones. He has more flight hours than everyone in this room combined. The silence deepened. Someone's phone clattered to the floor. Aurora stared at Jack, her expression cycling through shock, embarrassment, and something else. Something that looked almost like pain. "You've been cleaning floors," she said slowly, "for 6 months. You've been working here for 6 months and you never said anything?" "You never asked," Jack replied simply. "But why?" She gestured around the hangar, at the mops and buckets in the corner, at his janitor's uniform. "Why are you doing this? You could be flying. You could be instructing. You could—" "I needed a job," Jack interrupted quietly. "I have a daughter to support. I'm not cleared for military flight anymore after my injury. The commercial airlines wouldn't hire me without recent civilian certifications I couldn't afford. Your company posted a job opening for maintenance staff. I applied. You hired me." He met her eyes directly. "I've been grateful for the work." The words hit Aurora like a slap. She had hired him. She had walked past him hundreds of times without seeing him, without knowing. One of the engineers who had laughed the loudest earlier stepped forward. His face was red with shame. "Sir, I apologize. We didn't know. We had no idea who you were." Jack turned to him. His voice stayed level, but there was steel underneath. "You didn't know I was a pilot. That's true. But you knew I was a person. You laughed anyway." The engineer looked down at his shoes. Aurora found her voice again. It came out smaller than before. "The accident. What happened?" Jack was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was distant, like he was seeing something far away. "Training exercise went wrong. Mechanical failure. I got my crew out safely, but I took shrapnel in my left leg during the crash. It healed, but not well enough for active duty. The Air Force retired me with honor. Gave me a medal, gave me a handshake, sent me home." He paused. "My wife was already sick by then. Stage 4 cancer. She died 8 months after I got back. Left me with our daughter and medical bills I'm still paying off." The hangar had gone so quiet you could hear the wind outside. "So no," Jack continued, "I'm not here because I want to be. I'm here because I need to be. Because Ella needs food and a home and a father who shows up. Pride doesn't pay for those things." Aurora's hand went to her mouth. Tears formed in her eyes, though she tried to blink them away. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Jack shook his head. "You didn't know my story. But here's the thing, Miss Valen. Nobody in this room knew anyone else's story either. That engineer over there," he pointed to a man in his 50s, Marcus worked his way through night school while supporting 3 kids. Jennifer in accounting? She's a single mom with a disabled son. Carlos in shipping lost his brother last year. He looked around at all of them. Everyone here is carrying something. Everyone is fighting battles you can't see. That's why you treat people with respect. Not because of what they can do for you, but because they're human. The words settled over the group like a blanket. Several people were crying now, including Marcus. Aurora wiped her eyes. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer, more real. The helicopter. You flew it perfectly. How did you know the controls? Jack allowed himself a small smile. I've been cleaning it for 6 months, remember? I studied the manual during my breaks, read the engineering specs. I saw the design and I recognized good work. Whoever built this knew what they were doing. I trusted it. But those maneuvers, Marcus said, those weren't standard flight patterns. Those were combat tactics. Old habits, Jack admitted. I wanted to test the stress limits. See how she handled aggressive inputs. Your autopilot system is fine, by the way. But the manual override is even better. This aircraft is ready for production. Aurora looked at the Valkyrie V9, then back at Jack. We have our test pilot, she said firmly, if you want the job. I have a job, Jack replied. Maintenance. Not anymore. Aurora's voice had regained some of its strength. As of right now, you're our chief test pilot. Full benefits. Salary that actually reflects your skills. And I want you consulting on our pilot training program. Jack hesitated. I need to think about Ella, my hours, my schedule. Whatever you need, Aurora said quickly. Flexible hours. Work from home when possible. We'll make it work, please. We need you. She paused, then added quietly, I need to learn from you. Jack studied her face, saw something genuine there, something humble. Maybe she could change. Maybe they all could. I'll think about it, he said. Then he picked up his ID card from the table, tucked it back in his wallet, and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted silently to let him through. Just before he reached the door, he turned back. Miss Valen, about that marriage proposal. Aurora's breath caught. Jack smiled. A real smile, warm and kind. I think we should start with coffee. The video spread like wildfire. Someone had been recording the entire encounter. By that evening, CEO mocked janitor, then he flew her helicopter like a legend, was trending worldwide. 10 million views in 24 hours, then 50 million. The comments section exploded. This is what happens when you judge people by their uniforms instead of their character. He protected her ego even while she humiliated him. That's class. The way he called everyone out about respecting people? Chills. News outlets picked up the story. Local television, then national, then international. Jack Turner became known as the Flying Janitor. Clips of his tactical maneuvers were analyzed by aviation experts who called his flying textbook perfect and absolutely fearless. But the internet wasn't just celebrating Jack. They came for Aurora hard. Her social media filled with angry messages. People called her out for how she treated her employees. Past videos surfaced of her making dismissive comments about service workers. The hashtag #DoYouKnowYourJanitor started trending, with people sharing stories of overlooked employees with extraordinary backgrounds. To her credit, Aurora didn't hide. 3 days after the incident, she posted a video. No makeup, no script. Just her, sitting in her office, looking tired and genuine. I was wrong, she said simply. I treated Jack Turner with disrespect. I treated many of my employees with disrespect. I made assumptions based on job titles instead of seeing people as individuals. That stops now. She paused, collecting herself. Effective immediately, I'm implementing new policies at Aerosky. Every employee, regardless of position, will have quarterly one-on-one meetings with management. We're increasing wages for our service staff by 30%. We're creating a scholarship program for employees who want additional training or education. And I'm personally apologizing to every person I've wronged. The video went viral too. Some people praised her accountability. Others remained skeptical. But it was a start. At Aerosky headquarters, things changed quickly. The engineers who had laughed at Jack were required to write formal apologies. Not private ones. Public statements that were posted in the company newsletter. Most of them did so with genuine remorse. A few left the company, unable to face the shame. Jack accepted the position of chief test pilot. His first day in his new role, the entire staff gave him a standing ovation in the cafeteria. He looked uncomfortable with the attention, but Ella, sitting next to him, was beaming. Aurora had invited Ella to the company that day. She knelt down to the 9-year-old's level and handed her a small box. Inside was a detailed model of the Valkyrie V9 helicopter. "Your dad is the bravest man I've ever met," Aurora said softly, "and I think you already knew that." Ella hugged the model to her chest. "I told you," she said proudly. "He doesn't need medals." Aurora smiled, a real smile this time. "You're right, he doesn't." Later that week, Marcus approached Jack in the hangar. "I've been working here 15 years, he said. "You've been here 6 months, and you taught me more about leadership in 5 minutes than I learned in my entire career." Jack shook his hand. "We all have something to learn, and something to teach." 1 week later, Aerosky held the official launch event for the Valkyrie V9. Media from around the world packed the hangar, cameras everywhere, spotlights on the gleaming black helicopter. Aurora stood at the podium in a simple gray suit. She looked different somehow, less polished, more human. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "Today we're launching an aircraft that represents years of innovation and hard work. But I want to talk about something more important first." She paused, looking out at the crowd. "We often celebrate achievement without acknowledging the people behind it. We praise success while ignoring the sacrifices that made it possible. We see positions instead of people." Her eyes found Jack, sitting in the front row with Ella beside him. "Our greatest innovations don't come from titles or degrees. They come from humility, from dedication, from people who keep showing up even when no one notices. Today I want to honor a man who reminded me of that." She gestured to Jack. Lieutenant Colonel Jack Turner sacrificed his military career to save his crew. He endured personal tragedy while raising his daughter alone. He took a job he was overqualified for because he needed to provide for his family. And he never once complained, never once asked for recognition. The room was completely silent. "He taught us that dignity doesn't need recognition, that strength can look like gentleness, that heroes sometimes wear janitor uniforms." Aurora smiled, and there was warmth in it now. "I won't make jokes about marriage proposals again, unless he flies for us one more time." The room erupted in laughter and applause. Jack shook his head, grinning despite himself. After the speeches, after the media photos, after the celebration died down, Jack stood alone in the hangar with the Valkyrie V9. His voice, soft and reflective, filled the quiet space. "I used to fly to protect lives, to serve something bigger than myself. Then I lost that, lost everything it felt like. But I learned something in those years of being invisible, of cleaning floors while people walked past without seeing me." He ran his hand along the helicopter's sleek surface. "Dignity doesn't need wings to soar. It doesn't need recognition or applause. It just needs you to keep going, to show up for the people who depend on you, to treat others with the respect you want for yourself." He smiled. "I still fly, but now I do it for different reasons. For Ella, for the people who believed in me when I was invisible, for myself to remember that I'm more than my worst days." Outside, the sun was setting. Golden light streamed through the hangar doors. Aurora and Ella stood together in the doorway, watching as Jack climbed into the cockpit one more time. The engine roared to life. The Valkyrie rose into the amber sky, silhouetted against the sun like a promise, like hope taking flight. Subscribe if you believe humility is the highest form of strength.